What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. Delighted to be joined here by Seamus Brady from the Play on GA podcast. It is the final day of the National Football League this weekend, the final round of games, the final round of fixtures. Hard to believe that it's come in this fast. It honestly only feels like last week that the league actually started, but here we go. We're in the final day. We'll know for sure who are in the various different league finals, and we'll know for sure who has been relegated. And we'll also know a lot more as well about the overall spectrum of the All-Ireland as well, which teams might be in the Tailteann Cup and might also be in the All-Ireland series as well. So certainly a lot to discuss, a lot to break down. Seamus, how's things with yourself, I suppose? Are you excited as me about this weekend's games? I mean, there's so much going to be happening. It's a shame the divisions aren't spread out a bit more, but overall, I think it's going to be mental come Sunday when you're seeing all the scores come in.
Yeah, as you said, Aaron, thanks for having me on again. Massively consequential weekend, as we talked about, teams that could be in the All-Ireland Championship or not, teams that could be in the Tailteann Cup or not, relegations, promotions, league final appearances. Like, next week is going to have it all. And obviously, the Leitrim Sligo game jumps out as being hugely significant. The Louth Dublin one is actually interestingly now emerged as one to definitely keep an eye on. Whereas if you saw that fixture at the start, you would have been breezing past it. So yeah, definitely really, really excited for all the action this weekend.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll crack on with the Division 1 action. So obviously 4 games taking place in Division 1 to break down. We'll just remind ourselves of how the league table looks going into this weekend's game. So Mayo are sitting on top, obviously already guaranteed a league final with 10 points, 4 wins, 2 draws. Galway are in second with 8 points. Kerry are in third with 6 points. Tyrone in fourth with 6 points. Roscommon also with 6 points. And then Armagh in sixth with 5 points. And Monaghan in there with 4 points. Donegal, as we know, already relegated. And of course, Paddy Carr has since resigned. That news broke earlier, so we will touch on that a little bit later on as well. But even looking at that table would nearly give you anxiety trying to figure out all the permutations of what might actually happen. It's mad. Looking at it there, Tyrone still have an outside chance of relegation, but they could still get to a league final. It's kind of madness, really.
Well, that was it. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was only Galway and Mayo this was a couple of weeks ago, but only Galway and Mayo were the only Division 1 teams. I think it's still the case. Galway and Mayo were the only Division 1 teams that had lost less than 2 games. Galway had lost 1 and Mayo had lost none. And that's pretty, I think it's still the same there now, but that just tells you how much, Division 1 teams are taking points off each other. Roscommon's the perfect example. 3 wins out of 3 and now 3 wins out of 6. They've gone from winning 3 on the bounce to losing 3 on the bounce. And that's it. The thing about Tyrone there, the entire way through the league campaign, Tyrone have been talked about as a team that is looking over the shoulder at a potential relegation. I think for them going into this weekend, obviously they have Armagh there at home. What a great way it would be to shut people up talking about a relegation and to go and make a league final. Whatever about the league not mattering and stuff like this, but to go and make a league final when loads of people are saying you're going to get relegated or you probably will, or you have to look out for it at the very least, to go and get to a league final and potentially win the league would be absolutely amazing if they managed to do that.
Yeah, it certainly would be all right. And it does go to show how quickly really things can change. Even Roscommon, who won their opening 3 games, although they can't get relegated this weekend, it is just absolutely crazy. But starting with the Galway versus Kerry game, it's obviously a game that feels like the most on the line in Division 1 because both sides still have a chance of a league final. A draw will be enough for Galway to guarantee their place in the league final. A win for Kerry doesn't necessarily guarantee them league final because it will depend on how Tyrone get on against Armagh. But obviously, this game being a repeat of last year's All-Ireland final, as we very much know, Galway on a good run of form at the minute. They've won a couple of games in a row. Kerry, all their wins have come at home. All their defeats have come away. Hard one to call, but with the fact that there's a league final on the line, could you suspect that Kerry might click into gear here, or would you give Galway the edge?
I think Kerry will click into the gear here to some level, but not the entire way. I think, look, that interview with Jack O'Connor that's still stuck in my head. The one where he kind of openly said that the league doesn't really matter for them that much, that they're not giving it 110%. So,
Mm.
look, I think they will play well, Kerry, but it doesn't mean that much to them. It doesn't, like, they won't go that extra yard that Galway will go. So, like, to say this right off the bat, I'm going with Galway to win this game because Galway have a league final on the line. You know, you saw against Armagh, that was a game where you could really test there. How much do you want this? Because you've got Armagh there fighting for their lives in Division 1. Armagh are in the driving seat. Galway are losing by 4 points at half time, and yet they reel Armagh back in, and Matthew Tierney gets that late goal to snatch the victory for Galway. In a game where, let's be honest, if they lost, no consequences, absolutely zero consequences for them. And yet they still found that winning mentality of, no, we're not going to lose this game. We're going to turn this game around. And that's why for this one, there really is something on the line here. They win this or they get a draw out of this. They get it into a league final against their biggest rivals in Mayo, which is definitely something that would be sweet to win a league title against them. So you can't tell me that this weekend doesn't mean something to Galway. You can make an argument that it doesn't really mean that much to Kerry, but for Galway, they have motivation to go that extra centimetre than Kerry will. And that's why I'm going with them to definitely not lose this game.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about Galway, because the fact is as well is that I don't think they've won the league since the 1990s. From what I remember off the top of my head, it's definitely been over 20 years anyway. It's been a long time since Galway won the league. And it's been an interesting one with Galway, because actually when you look at them statistically, like, they've conceded the least in Division 1, but they've actually scored the second least in Division 1. Like, only Donegal have scored less than them. So, like, they haven't been scoring much. They haven't been conceding much. There's been plenty of times they haven't played well. You think of, as you said, the Armagh game, there was times I didn't think they were brilliant. I don't think Armagh were great either. I don't think either side were particularly great. You think the opening day against Mayo, I don't think they were great that day, but, we're unlucky probably not to get a win in the end with Ryan O'Donoghue's late point. Against Roscommon, I thought they were terrible, but they nearly managed to get something from that game. So it's been a strange one with Galway. Like, they've had some very up and down performances, but as you said, it's the sign of a good side. And maybe it's the sign of a different side to Galway that we haven't seen before.
Well, yeah, no, that's definitely a great point. I think with Joyce, ever since he came in, Galway have been playing, very, very exciting football. They've been moving the ball quick, getting the ball into Damien Comer, Shane Walsh as quick as possible, fast kick passing, fast tempo. And, going into this game, like, they have had that, the bit between their teeth. You think even back to last year, we saw it in spades against Derry. That game was not pretty, that game against Derry, and yet they ground it out and got the result. And not only did they get the result, they got it in style. It was akin to Dublin v Donegal 2011. Like, that's your real litmus test. That's a team that's going to set up, play very defensive. Can you break through? Galway ground that out. So they have that in spades. And they've shown it throughout this league campaign. Galway consistently have been in battles. No matter what game they've been playing in, they've been in the battle of a game. And they've got the results when they've needed them. As I said, they've only lost once. That was a pretty impressive record to be carrying into this game. Obviously, the Roscommon game wasn't their day. They were not on the ball at all. But apart from that, they've had some very impressive victories in terms of that they've just turned it up when they really need to. The victory over Tyrone was impressive. The victory over Armagh was impressive for the reason that I stated, because it's a real test of your will when you're in those conditions against an Armagh side that is not nice to play against, and you still find it deep down to go and win that game. And now with this one against Kerry, it's exactly why I think they're going to do it, because they have a motivation that they might not have had last week when they still managed to find the spirit to come back.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Kerry perspective, like, it's been, I was kind of thinking, like, we see this a lot of the time with teams when they've won an All-Ireland, when they sort of get the monkey off the back a little bit. The following year, there's always a drop off. Like Tyrone last year, the perfect example. Dublin 2011, Cork, or Dublin in 2012 when they won the All-Ireland in 2011, Cork the season previous. Even Donegal the year after they won an All-Ireland in when they won it in 2012, and then going into 2013. Like with Kerry, there does seem to be, I don't know what it is, but like with Clifford and O'Shea in the side, And the more time goes on, I think they will improve and get better. But it does seem like there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle missing right now. They do have injuries like Paul Gainey and, Stephen O'Brien and a few others. But it seems like outside of Clifford and O'Shea, they're not, they're not at the levels we expect. But at the same time, as you said, like Jack O'Connor is clearly thinking ahead. Like the league isn't of too much significance to them.
Yeah, and on top of that, crucially, the two players that you mentioned that are out injured right now, Paul Gainey and Stephen O'Brien, they're two players that I believe won't be around for much longer. I think both of them are approaching the twilight of their career. So for Kerry to look off the pace without these two doesn't bode well for the future. That being said, they've still picked up victories. And in the Monaghan game in particular, they looked at times like they could blow Monaghan away, and they pretty much did. Like the Paddy Clifford goal was fantastic. We'll say nothing about the defending for it, but they have shown at times they've just flexed how good their forward line is. David Clifford has been good. He hasn't hit the heights that he does hit usually. Sean O'Shea, the exact same for him, I would say. But going into this game, I think they're just going to give it one lash, and if they get into the league final, great. If they don't care, and that's why I think that they won't get there. I don't think they're going to get there. Could be made to eat those words, but I'd be surprised if they are willing to go as far as Galway are. I think they'll be looking at this game and thinking, the last thing we want is to play a game in terrible conditions in March and get David Clifford injured or Sean O'Shea injured, and then, be at a terrible position going into the championship. So I could see them playing this game at about 60-70%, whereas Galway will play this game at 110%. As you said, with Joyce, he's a winner. Pádraig Joyce wants this Galway team to leave a legacy, no doubt about it. Yeah. And scooping up a league title for the first time in God knows how long would be a great step towards it.
Yeah, and as Mikey says here, Mayo would prefer Roscommon in the final. Galway is the last team that they'd want. Yeah, and it is interesting, as Shane says here, having the Connacht Championship a week after the league final devalues the league. It is an interesting one because you could have a scenario where Mayo play Roscommon in the league final and are also playing each other a week later in the championship. I think it suddenly makes the league. Yeah, it suddenly takes the focus off the league final, and like both sides will, like, there'll be a bit of shadow boxing there, you'd imagine. It's like, and it shouldn't be that way. Like what a moment it would be for Roscommon if they were to win the league, or whatever. Mayo won the league a couple of years ago, but they don't exactly win it every year, so it's still a big thing for them. But yeah, that is an interesting dynamic going into this as well. Like the fact that there's so many Connacht teams competing for the league final, and a lot of them could play each other in the championship at some point as well.
Yeah, that's on the GA with the booking there. I don't know, like, do they look at the calendar? Like, come on, like, space these games out a little bit. Like, you think about the break weeks. Like, if they just, scrap the break weeks, we'd have a bit of a break between, and then maybe we wouldn't have as much shadow boxing. But if it's literally 1 week before, that's crazy. Like, I've never seen it that bad before.
Yeah, no, like even when I was saying that, I was like, that is quite bizarre, right? I don't know why it's so close together. I understand they're trying to push it together, but surely you could have at least a week's break. I think going straight into it is it's very, very odd indeed. Workmail says it's 1981 since Galway won the Division 1 title. Galway style this year hasn't been pretty. Strong focus on defence, and have scored an average of 13 points per game. So you're going for Galway?
Yes, I'm going for Galway. I predict that the conditions will not be the best, and as we've seen, Galway have made a habit of winning tight games or getting a result in tight games, not being beaten. And as we said, a draw for them is perfectly fine. And I can see it being not the prettiest of games again. Kerry getting dragged into a bit of a battle, and as we've seen, the Donegal game, perfect example. They haven't done the best in those games this season, and I predict Galway to not lose and to make a league final. I'm going to go Galway by about 2 points.
Yeah, I'm going to back Galway as well. I think Kerry haven't won a game away from home so far this year, and as you said, when the acid test has been put in front of Kerry this year, I think they have wilted ever so slightly, especially away from home. So I fancy Galway to nick it as well. I suppose moving on from that, then we have Mayo versus Monaghan. Obviously, Monaghan, as we very well know, the team that love to leave it to the last day of the league to pull a rabbit out of the hat. I suppose with the fact that Mayo have a league final wrapped up, and as we said, the Connacht Championship 1 week after a league final. So you'd imagine like Mayo are going to seriously rotate here, you'd imagine.
Well, that's the blessing for Monaghan in this game. If Mayo were in any way here unsure about whether or not, if Mayo were in Galway's position, say that Mayo swapped with Galway in terms of who's where in the table, Monaghan are going down. But the fact that Mayo are in the league final and the Connacht Championship is coming up so soon, like, they probably will rotate their team. And then you can see Monaghan getting the points here. And now, again, could Monaghan pull off the great escape? Like, they're very similar to, I think there was a few years in a row where Sunderland in the Premier League just kept on staying up every season. You wonder when it was going to end. And then when it ended, they went down straight down to League One then the next year. But, like, hopefully Monaghan don't do that. But in terms of great escapes, they're right up there with that record. Like, how many times they pulled it off. Last year's one for me is the pick of the bunch, beating Dublin at home. The way they did it as well. Jack McCarron again coming up trumps with the clutch point. Will he do it again? Like, who knows? They could be in a situation where they're level scores going into the last minute and then they know who to get the ball to. But going into this one, Mayo will definitely rotate, and you'd have to imagine that Monaghan are going to give this everything they've got. So I feel like you have to kind of think that Monaghan might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, is there an argument though, even with Mayo's rotation in their squad? Like, they've such a big squad and they've so many players, like as you said, like Cillian O'Connor hasn't really been starting. I don't know if has an injury issue, but maybe he comes back in for this. Maybe Kevin McLaughlin comes in. Like, they have so many options, so many depth of players in their squad that they can take in and take out. Like, you've got young lads in there like Aidan Orme, Jack Carney, who haven't really featured as much. Maybe they'll come in and get game time. Maybe Jason Doherty might come in and start. Like, they've got a very, very good squad. And actually, like, if they rotate their squad, it's like there's a drop, but there's still a lot of very good players there that like will be eager to impress. And that's why Mayo at the same time could also be a bit dangerous this week, because they could have fresh faces in there who will want to impress for the league final. They'll want to impress for the championship and sort of stake their claim when it's unlikely really they'll feature in any of those games. So it's a huge opportunity for them.
Without doubt. I mean, there's been a number of players that when they've played for Mayo have really, really impressed me. The Phil McDonough at wing forward is one that I always thought was really, really good. Then you mentioned Aidan Orme. He's one as well that I've always looked at and thought this guy has serious potential. Darren McHale as well, another Knockmore fella. He could definitely put in a shift there. And then if you're looking around the middle, like Jordan Flynn, I'd be, very interested to see if he starts this game again. He's been fantastic. He's, really gone from strength to strength since moving to midfield. Jack Carney, another one that has, really impressed me. So, yeah, there's a lot of players there that I've named that I believe would start for Monaghan. So it's one of those things that, could Monaghan actually be walking into a bit more of a difficult game than if Mayo played their entire team? Because if Mayo played your James Carrs, Ryan O'Donoghue's, would they be, one eye on the league final already and not really focus on the game against Monaghan? Whereas if Max Day brings in a squad full of lads that are trying to stick their hand up for a championship place, it probably could be difficult for Monaghan to beat that side. It definitely will be difficult for Monaghan to beat that side. I just think, again, your why is stronger. Monaghan's why on why they need to win this game is definitely stronger than Mayo's. And that's why I just think Monaghan never, ever, ever go down with a whimper. And I'd be surprised. Do you know what, though? I was surprised last week with how poor they were against Tyrone. I thought they would put up way more of a fight. I did pick Tyrone to win, but I thought Monaghan would put up way more of a fight. And I was surprised at that. So I think that's going to give them extra motivation to be good in this game. Don't go down like that. That type of attitude.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Like, I do fancy Monaghan to get the victory. Like, I think one thing to note as well is it's not like Monaghan have been terrible in this league. Like, I think they've put in some actually good performances. I think you could arguably say they've performed better in the league this year than last year, up until the final day. And I think like the likes of Micheál Bannigan, Jack McCarron, I think, a few red cards last week that maybe went against them. So no, like I quietly fancy them. I just think with Mayo, although like they probably will rotate, I just think there's probably going to be next to no interest in this game. Like they do not want to play this game at all with the other games that are coming up. So yeah, I think I'm going to back Monaghan. Are you backing Monaghan, or do you think the Mayo men will get the win?
I'm going to back Monaghan. As I said there, I think their Y is way stronger than Mayo's. Mayo, I'd say Mayo on some level view this game as some sort of a training game, some sort of a prep game for the championship where they can bolster their squad. And don't get me wrong, the point there by Gavin is definitely, correct for this Mayo side. Even with their bench, they're still a really, really good team. But as I said, their Y, Monaghan's Y is stronger. Their Y they need to win this game is way stronger than Mayo's. So I'm going to go with them to stage a dramatic victory as they usually do on the last day to give themselves a chance at staying up.
Yeah, and then we have Roscommon versus Donegal, and I suppose a game that probably would have been the last one on the agenda from Division 1, a game that, really doesn't have too much significance. Donegal, we know, are already relegated. Roscommon still have an outside chance of getting to a league final, but they would need Kerry to win, and a certain amount of results to go their way. Score difference would need to be in their favour as well. But as we very well know, as Elliot says here, will he be talking about Paddy Carr resignation as Donegal manager? Paddy Carr obviously stepping down after 6 league games in charge. I suppose it's fair to say all did not go according to plan, and I suppose when you had the likes of Carl Lacey stepping away in the background and murmurings of people not being happy, players not being happy, it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. But at the same time, it's sad for someone like Paddy Carr, who I'm sure did give it his all, and I'm sure did give it everything he had, and it hasn't worked out, and I suppose that's life.
Yeah, and it's crazy how quick things change. Like, because I seen there on my Instagram For You page a clip of Paddy McBrearty talking after the Kerry victory. And, he was being confident in this Donegal side, and it was a very symbolic kick that McBrearty kicked, over the winner, the new captain, 14 on his back, Michael Murphy's number, and swings over the winner. And you're thinking Paddy Carr, new management team, Donegal beat the All-Ireland champions at home. Great start. My God, it's gone bad since then. They haven't scored a goal from open play in the entire league campaign. They're the only team in Division 1 that statistic stands for. And not only that, they haven't looked like scoring a goal. Jamie Brennan had a flash goal chance against Monaghan where he kind of skimmed it across the crossbar. But apart from that, they really haven't looked threatening in any game that they've played. Like, you look, especially the Tyrone game, as soon as McBrearty went off, they were just reduced to taking pot shots from way out the field with a bit of a wind at their back. They never looked like they would ever threaten Niall Morgan. And that was the one thing that myself and Luke were constantly saying. It's not the defeats, it's the manner of the defeats. When Mayo got relegated from Division 1 2 years ago, you could see they were building something. You could see that there was a real team there. Sorry, it was 3 years ago that they got relegated, 2020. But you could see they were building something. You could see that James Horn was bringing through, a flood of new players, and you could see something was there. With Donegal, there's nothing really there. And they were getting beaten. Like, to think that they went into the Mayo game knowing how much was on the line in that game, knowing how much they needed to win that, and to lose it 117 to 9 points or something. Like, what was going on there? Like, absolutely no fight, which is completely the opposite of what we associate with Donegal since 2011 when Jim McGuinness got the job. This is as sticky, and it's funny I say that, this is as tough a situation as I've seen Donegal in since 2010, before Jim McGuinness got the job, because their path, shall I say, seems to be absolutely going downhill. When the only way is down, like, nobody wants to be the pilot, like the old expression is, and that's it. Like, who is going to take that job? We've seen obviously the Jim McGuinness, that whole fiasco about how he wasn't given the job, and you'd have to argue, why wasn't he? He's the most accomplished man. Like, that's like if Dessie Farrell steps away from the Dublin job at the end of the year and Jim Gavin throws his name into the hat and Dublin say, nah. Jim McGuinness is literally Donegal's best manager ever. So why they wouldn't want him in is beyond me.
Yeah, like, and I seen Kevin Cassidy was tweeting there saying time for Jim McGuinness to step up and everything else. Definitely no love
I
lost
have
between
I have a
them
theory
two.
about that, right? I'd be interested. I don't know, like I said it to Matthew, the GA Statsman, of course, big shout out to him. Was I think to some level, and I might be completely way off here, but think back to Jim McGuinness's time with Donegal, 2011 to 2014. An amazing 4 years for Donegal, GA, absolutely amazing. But also, that team was in controversy pretty much every game that they played. You think Jim McGuinness's first game as Donegal boss in the All Ireland Championship, his first ever championship game with them, that was against Antrim, and they played that really defensive style of football. And I think it was Pat Spillane said, why would we even give a man of the match or something, like he devalued the man of the match award. And Jim McGuinness went on the rant at him saying, like, don't disrespect my players, basically. And everyone remembers that All Ireland semi final against Dublin, the controversy that caused, the way he was playing. He is a manager that demands the best. And I have no doubt, the Kevin Cassidy situation as well, I've no doubt that he would have pushed everyone around him in that Donegal setup out of their comfort zone a bit. And maybe some people in the Donegal County Board don't really want to be pushed out of their comfort zone again. Because you think before
Yeah.
Jim McGuinness, and this is a fact, before Jim McGuinness got the job, he'd thrown his name into the hat multiple times and been turned down. It's not like Jim McGuinness, threw his name in and they said, yeah, you can have it. He had to come back time and again to get that Donegal job the first time. And they didn't even give it to him straight away. They gave him the under 21s. And then he was so good with the under 21s that they said, here, we have to give it to him now. Especially because when he walked in, they were ranked number 19 in the country. They'd just been thumped by Armagh in the qualifiers and were completely rock bottom. So then they said, okay, we have to give it to him now. But if the same people in the county board that maybe didn't want him there the first time because they know that, he brings a bit of drama with him as well, maybe it's a similar attitude here. Because look at the Jim McGuinness, Jimmy's Winning Matches documentary. It's on YouTube. Joe Brawley clearly says, like, there's no doubt he was feared to some level. And you wonder, maybe is that the reason that they didn't fully want him to come back?
Yeah, no, it's actually a very good point. Like, I think, yeah, like I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like, you think him coming in, he'll probably ruffle up a few feathers, probably,
Without doubt.
as you said, make the county board actually work a bit. Make them sort of do their job. And Paddy Carr, look, he's a bit of he's not, I don't know if I'd put him in the bracket as a Dublin legend, but he won an All-Ireland with Kilmacud Crokes. He's a proud Dublin man, and there was times before he was linked with the Dublin job many years ago, and it never quite materialised. So whatever he does next, I completely wish the best. But you wonder, were they looking for kind of yes men characters, or people coming in who were just gonna say yes, and not kind of ruffle the feathers a little bit. And as you said, it is quite bizarre that someone like Jim McGuinness, because I suppose it's been publicly known really that a lot of counties have tried to get McGuinness in. There's been murmurings about him being involved with Down and a few other things. Like, we remember he's been linked with Mayo and all sorts of madness, really.
But Galway as well.
Yeah, linked with Galway. We've seen him obviously do that training session. So you think he actually put his hat in the ring here. Like, he's no reason to lie about this. Like, he's no reason to lie about it at all. Like, he's got completely nothing to gain. So yeah, it's very, very bizarre that they didn't consider him. But what do you think, though? Do you think he could be tempted to jump in mid-season? Or
I hope so. So, because he definitely made the game more entertaining. Not in terms of his playing style. I don't think Donegal would be the game that you throw on definitely to watch for the entertainment, but definitely in terms of, definitely in his first year, I think he would come in and do a similar thing with Donegal if he got the job. I think he would come in and the first thing he would do would be to make them hard to beat, to make them tough, to make them scrappers again, like he did when he first came in. And then he would try and improve their attack, because their attack has been terrible, really, in the Division 1 so far. Even the game that they won against Kerry, they only scored 13 points in that game. So, like, their attack has never been shooting the lights out in the league so far. I think he would definitely try and get the best out of the likes of Oisin Gallen, Conor O'Donnell, Shane O'Donnell, players that undoubtedly have potential and are still young lads. But yeah, I would love him to get the job. I think it would definitely shake up things and it would make Donegal a contender. I fully believe if Jim McGuinness took the job tomorrow, that maybe not for this year because maybe there is some work that needs to be done, but definitely for next year and 2025, Donegal would be contenders for sure, in my opinion. There's not a doubt in my mind. There's a reason why every other county in the country pretty much wants McGuinness on board. He's that good. He's that good. So why Donegal passed on him? That's my point of why I said, is it just because he pushes them all outside of their comfort zone? Because if you're talking in terms of his knowledge of the game and his managerial ability, he blows everyone else away. Like if Donegal have any ambition here, any ambition of winning an All-Ireland in the next 5 years, the first thing they do is pick up the phone and call Jim McGuinness. That's the first thing they do. If they hire someone else, like Paddy Carr as an appointment for Donegal, makes no sense. Makes no sense. And the first reason that I'm saying it makes no sense is because he's not a Donegal man.
Yeah.
Donegal are a big enough county with enough legends of their own that they do not need a man from another county to come in and manage them. You never see Kerry doing that. You never see Dublin doing that. Why are Donegal doing that? It made no sense to me when I saw that. Like, why isn't even Michael Murphy offered the job? Maybe he was, but like you'd have to imagine that Michael Murphy will manage Donegal at some stage.
Yeah.
Like that type. Why did they not keep him around? His influence on the team is crucial. They probably offered it to him, but why not move heaven and earth to keep him around, even as a coach? I feel like if Jim McGuinness came in, the first thing he'd do is get Carl Lacey back in and Michael Murphy back in as his coaches. And by God, that would be a good Donegal management team. If they have any ambition, that's what they do.
Yeah, like, and I think it would I think it would be a tougher job this time around than last time, just maybe with the fact that I think the rest of the country's improved. I think there's better. I think the Ulster province generally is better. Like, I think in 2010, 2011, it was in a strange place where it was Donegal, Monaghan were good. Tyrone were always kind of generally good, but like Armagh had completely fallen off a cliff. Tyrone, to an element, were actually rebuilding a little bit during those years. And Derry were not at the same levels as what they were now, although they did actually get to the league final.
It was at a period of time where Down had out of nowhere made an All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
No, it was a strange one because Armagh had fallen off a cliff, but Armagh had still whooped Donegal the year previous. Tyrone were halfway between the team with Peter Hart and Matty Donnelly, and they were halfway letting go of the Stephen O'Neills, Philip Jordans, Conor Gormley's. Like they were playing their last few games for Tyrone. And yeah, no, it was a weird time for it, without doubt. And you think about the Kerry, even like the Kerry were a bit in a weird place as well at the time. Like Dublin were obviously rebuilding too. They were about to win their first All-Ireland. Like it was a strange time in Gaelic football. It was a time that score lines weren't generally reaching the high teens in terms of points.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Workmail says, don't think Jim has time on his side to become manager, but might help out on coaching alongside a manager. I think he still has plenty of time. I mean, he's still young enough, in manager terms. Workmail says Aidan O'Rourke filling in as Donegal manager adds a bit of spice to the encounter on Sunday, as he was the Roscommon County preferred candidate in 2018. Yeah, it's definitely going to add a bit more spice. In terms of the game itself, then, I mean, could there be a kick in Donegal? The old manager bounce, as they say, or could Roscommon, I suppose, on the back of 3 defeats, I suppose, turn it around? I suppose they have something to play for, I guess.
Honestly, couldn't tell. I couldn't tell here because Donegal are down. Will they go out and play with a bit of a freedom that, like, the worst thing that could have happened has happened? Will they go out and just go, all right, that doesn't matter. Let's just go out and give it our best shot, and maybe they play really well. Maybe all of a sudden their forwards click into the gear. But for Roscommon, the fact that they can still make a league final, but then obviously they have the first game in Connacht to think about, it actually is hard to know who would want to win this game. Like, do Roscommon want to make a league final? Probably. Like, you'd imagine Davy Burke definitely would want to put them on the map. So like I will go with Roscommon to win this game, like narrowly, probably a point or two. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if Donegal go out there and just say, "Do you know what, lads, we're relegated. The worst thing that could have happened has happened. Let's just go out there and give it a crack and see what happens." Like I wouldn't be surprised if that happens either.
Yeah, I think so. Like I have a funny feeling Donegal will put in a performance here, but I do fancy Roscommon. Like I think Roscommon in the last couple of games have probably had a few difficult fixtures. Obviously playing Mayo, playing Kerry. I think the three defeats is not slight on their progress. I think they've just had few difficult teams, a few difficult games. Going away to Monaghan as well, for example, is another one there as well that springs to mind. So I am going to back Roscommon by the narrowest of margins. Last but not least in Division 1 is Tyrone versus Armagh. Obviously, massive rivals, neighbours and all the rest. You think of the historic games that have happened between these two down the years, and I suppose Tyrone would love nothing more than to relegate their near neighbours. And when you consider what happened between these two in the league last year, Tyrone getting, what was it, 4 players sent off, 5 players sent off, and then you think of the game in the championship where it was actually Armagh who ended Tyrone's reign as All-Ireland champions in the qualifiers, knocking them out of the competition. So I'm sure there's gonna. How many red cards do you think there will be at this game?
That's a good first question. I'm gonna say at least 2. And I don't know who will I think will get them. That's an even spicier one. Who do you think will be sent off? I'm gonna say Paddy Hampsey and maybe Tiernan Kelly. Well, like Tiernan Kelly could be. I don't know. It's a difficult one. They all got in last time, so any of them could go.
That's the thing. You can see them all getting involved. Like you just pick out random names and go for it. Like
But definitely Paddy Hampsey's definitely one that in the past has been involved in scuffles. Like, he got involved in the scuffle down the tunnel with Dublin that time a couple of years ago. And then you think Tiernan Kelly obviously is the one that, tried to rearrange Damien Comer's face as they were walking off the sideline there in the quarterfinal last year. So they definitely have the name for it. But yeah, any of them. You're right. It could be any of them. When you play a team that you hate that much, Tyrone and Armagh have the rivalry that is legendary. But it's also legendary for red cards. You look back at the games in the 2000s, that the infamous shot of Peter Canavan getting dragged halfway across Croke Park. Like this game brings that element to it. So I think no doubt with Tyrone being teed up as well, a gorgeous opportunity to relegate Armagh, they're not going to turn that down. They're going to put everything they have to try and relegate Armagh. And you know what? I think they're going to do it as well. I think they're going to be absolutely fired up to relegate Armagh for the 4 red cards last year, for ending their reign as All-Ireland champions. I think they're going to go hell for leather for it. And I think Armagh might just sink under.
Yeah, like I think yeah, like I don't think I've known a more fierce inter-county match, I think, in the country. Like you could argue there's a lot more games that are better quality and maybe better battles, but I feel like this is one of the most fiercest inter-county games that happens. Like
it's definitely the one now. I think Dublin Meath in the 1990s definitely gives it a run for its money. Meath and Cork at the end of the 80s, they absolutely pulled a hair off each other. But I would say definitely out of the games that get played now, it's definitely the fiercest.
Yeah, you can argue Dublin and Mayo had a fair few fierce battles as well over the last sort of 5 or 6 years when you think of red cards and incidents and everything else. But yeah, I suppose, what do you make of Armagh? Like obviously coming under a lot of criticism at the moment, and a lot of fans and everything maybe saying is Geezer the right man, and it's a hard one to know with them. Like I rated them quite highly at the start of the year. I think you predicted them to get to a league final as well. I think a lot of us had rated them quite highly, and they just haven't been at it at all this year, have they?
Yeah, no, they've let me down to some level, Armagh. I really thought that with everyone else taking their eye off the ball, I thought Kieran McGeeney would definitely want to get his hands on a bit of silverware with this Armagh team. Like, he's been there since 2015. He definitely wants to, leave something behind in the trophy cabinet, which so far he's failed to do. Apart from a Division 3 title, but that's not something that Kieran McGeeney will be over the moon with. Like, he's a winner. He wants an All Ireland. He wants an Ulster Championship. He wants a Division 1 title. He wants Armagh to be the best team in the country, not the best team in Division 3. So, no doubt he would have wanted to win the league at the start of January. I fully believe that. And when they beat Monaghan on the first day, I was thinking, right, here we go. Armagh are going to turn up. And since then, they've had a couple of bad performances. You think about the Mayo game, they really let Mayo get the run on them in that game. I know they pulled it back to get the draw. But you think about the Roscommon one. When the game was there to be won, Roscommon were the team that went and won it. And I wasn't expecting that from Armagh this season. I thought the way that they lost to Galway, how heartbreaking it was. And knowing that, I fully believe that, having seen how easy Galway went on to beat Derry, I know GA math doesn't add up, but I actually would have backed Armagh to beat Derry in that semi-final and to get into an All-Ireland final against Kerry. And then they would have walked into that final with the confidence that only Ulster teams have against Kerry, that they're going to go in there and get the victory. And yeah, I feel like they will look. I thought that they would be more fired up for this year, but they haven't really been, and they've lost a couple of games that they didn't think that they would lose. And now they're in a position where, instead of making a league final, I predicted and you predicted them to finish quite high as well, they're actually looking the other way. And if they get relegated, that's a very, very disappointing start to the year. And it would be very, very difficult for them to turn it around and go and win the Ulster Championship off the back of that.
Yeah, I think the quality is there, the talent levels are there. There are great players, and they proved last year they have what it takes to beat the best. In Ulster, obviously when they did it in the qualifiers, and as you said, I think they would have had the run of Derry in that All Ireland semi-finals. But at this moment in time, it just doesn't quite seem right, and the shift from being way more defensive, I don't think has suited them as much. I think when they went after teams last year, I think that's when they were at their best, and there just seems to be a lot of cautiousness, overly cautious. I think at times is nearly what I would call it. Patrick says I think Armagh will beat Tyrone. Different attitude Armagh will have. I'm sure they will be up for it, but you're back in Tyrone. I think I might back them as well, to be honest with you.
But it contradicts the point of your why. Why do you need to win this game? Armagh's why do they need to win this game is bigger than why do Tyrone need to win this game. But when you understand the rivalry between these two counties, when you understand, the history between these two counties, Tyrone would love nothing more than to relegate Armagh. If they can relegate Armagh and potentially get to a league final in the one day, what a day that could be for Tyrone Gaelic football.
They'll have to call a bank holiday or something.
Yeah, literally, they'd be all off now on a holiday for the rest of the week, and then they just, who cares about the Ulster Championship now, lads? We've done what we came to do. But when you have a rivalry with a team like that, as they say, there's no such thing as a friendly against your biggest rivals. There's no such thing as a Tyrone Armagh game with nothing on the line. Tyrone are going to turn up correct, and I just think they're going to get the victory because they would love nothing more than to get this victory. And two red cards. 2 red cards, you heard it here.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to go 3 red cards actually, just to spice it up. But I do fancy Tyrone just to nick it by a couple of points. I do think Armagh will push Tyrone, and I think it will be a close. I think it'll probably be low scoring, and it'll be a very stop-start game, a lot of fouls and everything else.
All the red cards.
yeah. But I'm going to back Tyrone, I think, by the smallest of margins. You never quite know with Tyrone. Sometimes they can be quite inconsistent.
Armagh could batter Tyrone.
They could.
Tyrone have been here 1 minute, gone the next. And you look at their whole, not even their league campaign, their whole 2023 looked amazing in the McKenna Cup, and then got annihilated by Derry in the final. And then one game at the start there against Roscommon, they look terrible. Everybody writes them off. Then they go and wipe the floor with Donegal. Now all of a sudden they're back. That just sums up. 1 week they're great, 1 week they're bad. And you do wonder, like, there is that element of, maybe they're a bit safe. Maybe Armagh might go and absolutely hammer them. But I really doubt Tyrone will just roll over and concede this game, especially against Armagh.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I definitely fancy Tyrone at this moment in time. We'll move on to Division 2 and remind ourselves of how things look here. So Derry are on top, as we very well know, promoted, 6 wins from 6, sitting on top with 12 points. Dublin are in second with 10 points, and Louth, who they play this weekend, are in behind with 8 points. We've got Cork with 6 points, Meath with 5 points in 5th, and Kildare are safe, but sit in 6th with 4 points, and Clare and Limerick, both in the relegation zone, and both already relegated. I suppose the only game really of significance in Division 2 in terms of deciding promotion or relegation or whatever is Dublin versus Louth, obviously in Croke Park. And as we were saying at the top of the show, not many people, and certainly Dublin fans and probably Louth fans as well, wouldn't have predicted this game to have had so much meaning going into the final round of fixtures. And look, Dublin are clear favourites, and I think if Dublin were to lose this, I think we'd have to close the border between Dublin and Louth. I think I don't know. I think it would just be an absolute disaster, to be honest with you. And that's not to take anything away from Louth at all. Like, they've done really well, but I just think when you look at where Dublin were a couple of years ago, you look at where Louth were a couple of years ago, for them to beat us in our own backyard in Croke Park, it'd be catastrophic, really.
Yeah, basically, if Louth won this game, that would be one of those where you'd be like, do you know, if you jumped forward in time from 2020 to 3 years later, what the hell is going on here? Because Louth, cast your minds back to 2020. Louth were in Division 4. Dublin had just won the 6 in a row. 3 years later, we're talking about this game, and Louth could go up to Division 1 if they beat Dublin. Madness.
Yeah, no, it is. It's crazy altogether. Like, when you look at, I suppose the credit has to go to Mickey Hart, though, and his work mail says here, full credit to Mickey Hart. Took on Louth gig in November 2020 when they were relegated to Division 4, losing 6 of their 7 games. March 23, third in Division 2 with 8 points, and it is mental. And I think if they were even, not necessarily even beat Dublin, but even pushing Dublin, pushing them close, which, to be fair, I think they might do. I think it's nearly one of the greatest GA stories of the year, and probably of the last couple of years, because, Louth, it's not like they had a huge amount of underage success or they have a huge playing pool. There isn't a huge amount of players coming through there. And look what he's done. And even when you think last week, they were without Sam Mulroy and they still beat Cork. And Cork were in flying form.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And we were talking about how mad this is that they've ended up in this position. Do you know what's even more mad? I give them a chance of winning this game. I really do. I actually do think, when you look, I know, as I've said before, GA math doesn't always add up. They beat Kildare and they should have beaten Clare. And both of those sides should have beaten Dublin and Croke Park. Dublin have it within them to take their foot off the pedal, take their eye off the ball. Look, do I think that Louth are going to win? No. I think Dublin are going to win. I think Dublin, all hell would break loose if Dublin didn't win this game and had to have another year down in Division 2. I think everyone would be like, what? Yeah, no, I completely agree. There'd be a statue of Mickey Hart and Drogheda if Louth win this game. He's done such an amazing job. And, Louth have surprised me, you, the Louth fans, and they've surprised the RTE cameras by being as good as they've been this season. Nobody has predicted that they would be, without doubt, they've, absolutely blown me away with how good they've been in Division 2. They've gone from being definitely, particularly after they lost to Clare, I was thinking, right, they're definitely staring down the barrel of relegation here. And they've turned it around. And I think, personally, they believe that they can beat Dublin. I really do.
I think they do as well. I think even when you look at Sam Mulroy's interviews he's done in the last sort of year or so, I think he said the objective is to win Leinster. The objective is to beat Dublin. And, he was even saying, if you don't believe you're going to beat Dublin, well, there's no point to being here, and that is a great attitude to have. And to be honest, not many teams in Leinster have had that attitude in the last 10 years, even the big teams like Meath or Kildare. Now, to be fair, you can understand it to a certain extent. Dublin are miles ahead. So, you can't blood your brain with too much, unrealistic thoughts. But I think at the same time, it is a great attitude from a Louth perspective to have. It will be interesting to see how they approach this game, though, because one thing I've noticed down the years is that Dublin actually quite like playing against blanket defences and teams who set up overly defensive. Like in the first half versus Derry, we just picked them apart, and that's the best defence in the country by a comfortable mile. Like Derry stepped it up in the second half, went after us, and that's how they beat us. Clare nearly beat us by going after us. So that will be interesting from a Louth perspective, is to see, like, because in Croke Park setting up very defensive, I just don't think it will work. I think Dublin will pick them apart if they do that. But at the same time, that's what's worked for them so far. So
completely agree with you. That's why I think they actually don't. There's no way they're going to win, because they will carry on doing what they've been doing. And if you want to play a game of who can hang on to the ball for 60 seconds before taking a shot at the post, Dublin are brilliant at that. And they can do that all day. That's what we did against Derry in the first half. So I think, honestly, if I was Mickey Hart, I know it's going to be incredibly difficult, but go for it. Go for it. Like, just have a lash at this game. Kildare went for it. They should have won. Clare went for it. They should have won. Can you go that extra mile? Derry went for it. And when Derry went for it for a half. Derry didn't even go for it in the first half. Dublin were 5 points up at half time, and Derry went for it, and Dublin folded in the second half. So it's one of those things that, like, Louth will want to go at what has got them this far. But I really do believe that if you want to take that extra leap, you have to, ditch what has taken you this far and just go for it. Because we've seen here, particularly in Croke Park, Dublin will spray the ball around, hang on to it for 60 seconds, 120 seconds, and then give it to Dean Rock, who will be coming on the loop and swinging over the bar. And they'll do that over and over again, and they'll win by something like a goal and 14 to 9 points or something. But if Louth go for it, I think it could get very interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's an interesting one, all right, because you see Meath going to go for Dublin a little bit last week, and that didn't quite work out either. It's a hard one to know. I think they just need to balance themselves right, where they're not, they're not leaving themselves too exposed, but they're I think the main thing is just stay in the game. 2-3 points. Like, if it's going into the final 5 or 10 minutes and there's only 2 or 3 points in it,
then
that's when you start getting a bit worried. But
that's
when all in all,
I know it's crazy, but that's when you need to start put Conor Grimes, Kieran Downey, Sam Mulroy in the penalty box, and you need to start lamping that ball in there and seeing what you can make happen. Because, like, look at the Dublin versus Mayo game in 2021 and look at that and see how Mayo played probably one of the worst performances they've ever given in the first half, but they just stayed in the game. They got crucial points at crucial stages to keep themselves 3 or 4 points behind Dublin at all times. Dublin got comfortable. They got complacent. Could Dublin get comfortable and complacent in this game? Absolutely. Absolutely. They could get too comfortable or too complacent in this game. And do I think Louth, if they were 3 or 4 points behind with 10 minutes to go, do I think Louth could go for it? Yes. I think they could. But realistically, I am going with Dublin to win this game. I think for Desi, he has to win this game. Like, there's just no two ways about it. You want to keep your job as Dublin manager, you win this game. Simple as.
Yeah, and I was just having a look there. I think Sam Roy is going to be missing this game as well, like through injury. So I mean, that's like, I think Dublin surely, like, if they're not getting over the line here, I think massive questions need to be asked. Gavin says Rory with Derry couldn't even go directly from 1 to 4. Imagine if Mickey and Louth did it. I mean, yeah, that's exactly the point. From Division 4 football 2 years ago to being 1 win away from Division 1. If that doesn't give hope to the likes of Laois and Wexford, nothing will. Yeah, and I think it goes to show, a lot of counties in Leinster in particular have been complaining to county councils about Dublin. Oh, Dublin are too far ahead, blah, 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 blah. And look, they probably are, but go and do something about it yourself. It's like, and look what Louth are bringing to the table. And they have a strong possibility now of getting to a Leinster final. And if you said to Laois, Wexford, or any of these counties, you have a chance of getting to a Leinster final, they'd bite your hand off. So, like, it shows the progress that Louth have made.
Yeah, and it's laid down a blueprint for other counties. Like that, Derry getting promoted. Imagine if Derry and Louth both get promoted. That's 2 counties that, within the last 7 years, we're both in Division 4. So that should give inspiration to your likes of Leitrim, your Sligos, Leitrims, that, hey, you can get all the way up to Division 1 here, especially counties that have the history of the Derrys and so on. I'd absolutely love to see them do it. Like, I know that, I'm a Dublin fan, do want us to get the victory. But if we were ever going to lose a game, like, what a story it would be if Louth managed to do this.
Yeah, no, like in fairness, it would be quite the story. All right, I suppose we'll run through some of the other Division 2 games quickly enough. Cork versus Derry, first of all. I mean, it's a game that means nothing necessarily. Derry have obviously got promotion already wrapped up. Cork, it's a hard one to know with Cork. Like, they've won 3, lost 3. If they lose this, it means they'll finish with 6 points. It's hard to know if they've actually made a huge amount of progress. But then when you look at their wins, they've battered Kildare, battered Limerick, won fairly comfortably against Clare. So it's hard to kind of judge them. But what are we thinking here? Like, could Derry rest players now, especially with the likelihood they're playing Dublin and Croke Park next week?
No, Rory Gallagher doesn't rest players. I think we saw that. Conor Glass straight back in. He's off the training session for Glenn for 2 minutes, and he's straight back in midfield. I think Rory Gallagher wants that swish. He wants that 7 out of 7 up to Division 1. I think he wants it. And I think they're going to get it. I think Derry to win this one for me.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think Derry are probably just that bit ahead of Cork. And as you said, like, I think there might be a small bit of rotation, but you'll still see probably Conor Glass and Shane McGuigan and the main players still lining out. Clare versus Limerick. I mean, a game both sides already relegated. Two sides very familiar with each other from playing each other in the Munster Championship. Outside chance they could play each other in Munster again this year, and obviously, we'll have to get familiar with each other down in Division 3 next year. I mean, it's been tough on Clare. Like there's been times they've played well this year, but haven't quite get over the line. Like, I suppose, speaking of Clare, like, is it a case that they've done so well in Division 2 for so long that the time has come to an end, or is it a case that they've just been a bit unlucky with some results and maybe things just didn't go their way this year?
It's the latter. They should have beaten Dublin. They should have beaten Kildare, and if they had, they'd be safe. Like, that's the bottom line. I am going with them to win this game, and as I said, I'm Matthew again produced the clip of the two of us chatting about the fact that they are relegated and they will play in the Tailteann Cup. I think it's a good thing. I know that I've said it openly on my channel as well. Might get stick for it. Might get people saying, like, why would you want to play in the Tailteann Cup? Are they going to win the Munster Championship? No, because Kerry are there. Are they going to win the All-Ireland Championship? No. So why not try and win the Tailteann Cup? Like, that's like that. What a legacy that would be for Colin Collins if they got to a final in Croke Park and won the Tailteann Cup. Like, that would be magnificent. And I do believe, out of the teams that are definitely going to be in the Tailteann Cup as of now, Clare have the best squad. I fully believe that Clare have the best squad out of any of the teams that right now you could say are definitely going to be in the Tailteann Cup. They're fantastic forwards. Gavin Cooney, Emmett McMahon, Keelan Sexton, Jamie Malone. They've brilliant forwards. So, and Owen Cleary, I didn't even mention Owen Cleary there. Fantastic players. And they should have won against Dublin and Croke Park. They should have won against Kildare. So I would 100% put them as my favourites for the Tailteann Cup now that they're in it.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, and I think it could work out that Cavan end up in the Tailteann Cup if they don't get to a provincial final, given the fact that either one of the sides in the Connacht Championship, Leitrim, Sligo, London, or New York potentially could get to a Connacht final. And then Westmeath are already guaranteed. So it could be possible that Cavan are in there, and they're probably the one team you'd look at and think Clare, Cavan, probably the two strongest sides. But as you said, like, it'd be huge exposure for Clare. Even
would
for
you
Limerick,
would you back Clare to beat Westmeath?
Probably at this moment in time, yeah, I would.
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Definitely would. Yeah.
Cavan on paper. Look, I know that Cavan are very, very strong, or have been very strong. They've just lost to Antrim there, which obviously we're going to get into, and they're without Thomas Gallagher. So you could argue they're actually weaker this year, on paper anyway, than they were last year, and Westmeath beat them in the final. So I would actually be putting Clare ahead of Cavan right now.
Yeah, no. Like I think it's a game that could go either way if it happened. And to be fair, if it did come around, I think it would be a very, very interesting game. Back clear to win this one as well. I think they should have enough to beat their near neighbours. Kildare versus Meath, I suppose, two sides again that are neighbours. There's a lot of derbies this weekend. A lot of counties sort of neighbouring each other that just so happen to be playing each other.
It's a shame. It's a shame that this one is kind of that
Yeah, kind of lost in the
a lot of the games
darkness a
don't
bit.
really mean anything. Yeah,
Yeah. Like this would have been an interesting game as maybe a
2 weeks
starter in
ago.
Division One or something.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
halfway through. But Workmail says Kildare v Meath, an important game this weekend, as whichever finishes sixth in Division Two could end up in
Oh,
Tailteann Cup if Cavan or Clare reach their provincial final. It is an interesting point. Like
that's
sixth
what I wanted to know.
you could still go into the Tailteann Cup if you finish sixth, depending on how results go elsewhere. So, look, it is a game that does maybe have a bit more meaning because for all you think of the history of these two, either one of these two ended up in the Tailteann Cup would be a massive step backwards, considering where both of these two sides want to be. So, who would you back here?
Very difficult one to call this. Very difficult because Kildare obviously saved themselves from relegation there last week against Limerick, got a good win. Meath, on the other hand, had a terrible performance against Dublin in a game where I really thought Meath are going to try and make a statement here about how close they've been getting to Dublin, and they just got blown away again. Really, really hard to know this one. It's really, really hard. It really is. I'm probably going to go with Meath narrowly because I think the game will be an open one. I don't think Kildare will park the bus. I think they'll go pretty much man to man with Meath, and we've seen throughout the league that those type of games do kind of suit Meath. A kick passing type of game. Colin O'Rourke definitely wants to play that type of football. Quick ball inside to Jordan Morris and the like. And I feel like, Meath could put Kildare in a precarious situation here with a win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you're backing Kildare?
Meath,
yeah.
yeah.
I think so as well. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Like, I mean, I think Kildare, like they like from what I heard, they weren't even that great against Limerick last week.
No, they weren't.
No.
Derek Irwin got that late goal approaching the dying minutes of the game, which finally finished Limerick off, but they'd been hanging in there with them. And they conceded 2 goals to them in the second half. Like, they looked like they could be caught by this Limerick side, a Limerick side that has been through the turmoil of, Billy Lee was a manager, then he was gone, then they brought in Ray Dempsey for this league campaign, and he didn't even make it to the end of the league campaign. So, yeah, like, it's a Limerick side that isn't exactly at 100%, and still this Limerick side caused Kildare a lot of problems. So that's why I'm going with Meath to win this game.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think Meath have gone 4 games without a win now, and I think to be going into that Leinster Championship without a win, possibly, as we said, and maybe in the Tailteann Cup to come as well.
If Kildare go from Division 1 to the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah. I actually think there's actually more jeopardy on this for Kildare because Meath, although like Louth, as we said, are in brilliant form, but Meath are on the side. They're avoiding Dublin to a Leinster final, so it's not impossible. Whereas Kildare are on the same side as the draw as Dublin. So I think like there's probably a lot more riding on this, especially with it being a Newbridge as well. There's probably a lot more riding on this.
Yeah, probably is for Kildare, but then again, I feel like O'Rourke will not want to go into the championship off the back of 4 defeats. Like, I definitely think he's going to want to turn the corner with it, and some of them have been bad defeats as well. The defeat to Louth, they definitely wouldn't have enjoyed that, and then the manner of which they lost to Dublin and to Derry was very tough to watch. So, and they started off the league with such positivity. They looked really, really good in their first 2 games, scoring 3 goals against Cork, scoring 4 goals against Clare. And I think O'Rourke will want to restore some of that positivity before the championship begins.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to go for a draw. Do you know what? I think I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. We'll move on to Division 3. So this is how it's looking here. Cavan are already promoted with 10 points. Fermanagh in second with 10 points. Down and Offaly both sitting level with 8 points in third and fourth. Westmeath out of the promotion running with 6 points. Antrim obviously safe, and Tipperary and Longford already relegated. I suppose the main game to discuss here, Cavan versus Fermanagh. Fermanagh need a result. They need at least a draw here from this game. It's a guarantee promotion. I And obviously, if they were to slip up in this game versus Cavan, it could allow Offaly to come in and beat down and actually get in ahead of Fermanagh, because Offaly already beat Fermanagh this year, so they have the head-to-head record there. So what are we thinking here? I mean, Cavan beaten by Antrim last week, rotated quite heavily. I think they're looking ahead now towards obviously the Division 3 final and the Ulster Championship. But Fermanagh, like, you have to give them credit, like what season they've had.
Yeah, they've been brilliant. They've been absolutely fantastic. They've won games that I thought that they wouldn't. They've beaten Down, they've beaten Westmeath, two teams that I thought that they would lose to. And they've just been fantastic. They're coming with the likes of Ulton Kelm, who's been absolutely magnificent so far. And in the last game, when Westmeath hit their goals very, very quickly, they hit 2 goals in 60 seconds. Ulton Kelm responded with one of the clutch points of the league, an absolute boomer to put Fermanagh back in charge. And like throughout this league, they've been fantastic. They've, uprooted some players, Darren McGurn, Josh Largo Ellis, like some super players that they've brought into their side. And they still have Sean Quigley there doing the business up front. They're a very, very solid side going into this game against Cavan. For me, it's just, what is Cavan's mentality going into this game? As you said, they're set, they're promoted, they have their eye on the Division 3 final, they have their eye on the Ulster Championship coming up. Will Cavan go for it like that? Because if they do, I think Fermanagh are in trouble. But if Cavan take their eye off the ball like they did last week with Antrim, then I am going with Fermanagh to win this game. But it just does depend on what Cavan turns up.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, and that's why I actually fancy Fermanagh to get the victory here. I think when we've seen Cavan rotate quite heavily against Antrim last week, like it does lead me to think Mickey Graham's probably going to do the same again. He's been fairly open time and time again about, the league isn't that important. And in fairness, look, Cavan have been sensational for the opening 5 games, winning the opening 5 matches. They've done their job. They've gotten out of the division. A defeat here doesn't matter. So, yeah, I fancy Fermanagh, to be honest, to Nick. I think the form that they're in, the form that Sean Quigley's in, Ulton Kelm, Darren McGurn, I fancy Fermanagh. What do you think?
I'm going to go against you. I'm going to go Cavan. Oh, will I? Oh, I don't know. Because Cavan obviously have it in them as well to just switch off. Fermanagh. Change your mind. Go Fermanagh. I just think Cavan don't necessarily want it as much as Fermanagh will. I'm going Fermanagh.
Yeah, like I think if Cavan went full strength, I think they'd win. I think that this is in the championship. I'd fancy
the last
Cavan
time they played each other in the league, Fermanagh won. I don't know if that's any significance at all, but Fermanagh won in 2021 when Cavan got relegated. Obviously it was different. Ryan McMenamin was in charge then, but Fermanagh have beaten Cavan in the league the last time they played, so they could definitely do it again.
Yeah, I suppose that would make this game somewhat irrelevant. Obviously, both games would be happening at the same time. I was thinking at the same time though, it'd be a magnificent story, wouldn't it be, if Offaly were to get promoted, considering obviously the tragic passing away of Liam Kearns. I mean, what a story that would be if they could do it. I do fancy them to beat down, and look, you'd be looking at it and you'd kind of be hoping for Offaly to kind of get their moment. Considering everything that's happened there, it'd be I suppose a phenomenal story in some ways, given what's happened. But yeah, well, what you reckon? Do you think Down could maybe upset the odds a bit here, or what you reckon?
I'm going to go Offaly. I'm going to go Offaly to take this one, which is why, like, my heart does want Cavan to win. I don't mean any offence to Fermanagh, but my heart does want Cavan to win this game and Offaly to win this game and Offaly to go back up to Division 2, considering everything, obviously the tragedy that has happened. That's just personal. I would love to see Offaly go and do it for Liam Kearns, and but I actually do fancy them to win this game anyway. I fancy them to beat this Down side. Down have been pretty inconsistent throughout the league campaign. They've bounced back and shown defiance in some games. They've had, obviously Eugene Brannigan coming into the panel, something I didn't think would happen at all, considering his comments last year. And but then at times, they've lost big games. They lost to Fermanagh, a game that I thought that they would win. So it's difficult to know how they'll turn up, and that's why I'm going with Offaly to win this one.
Yeah, I think so as well. I suppose in regards to this one, we're both fancying Westmeath here, even though they haven't been great at all this year.
This is the type of game where Westmeath win by 15 points or something. They've absolutely blown away anyone that they should be winning. with Desi Dolan, obviously their first year in charge, they've shown, great attacking potential against the Tipperary side. That I have to say, I feel for them. I feel for David Power. He has to pretty much play with a completely different team every single year. They have to find an entirely new best starting 15. And this year has been no different. You think about, the injury to Conor Sweeney, Michael Quinlivan not taking part in the panel again. They've had in the retirement of Robbie Kiley. They've had to keep finding new players for this side. And this year, look, the Wells not produced what it has before. David Power can't keep finding the Sean O'Connors, the Jack Kennedys, the Mark Russells, like players to step in and do a job while the likes of Michael Quinlivan, Josh Keane aren't there. And that's what's happened this year. And I predict that Westmeath win this game and Tipperary go down winless, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, it's been such a strange season for Westmeath. Like, even looking at it here, their points difference is plus 50. It's actually the best in the division. Like, Fermanagh, for example, who are in second, they're on plus 18. Like, it's just been very odd season for Westmeath. Actually been very disappointed with them, to be honest, considering, what we expected from Westmeath at the start of the year. But yeah, I do expect them to get the better of Tipperary and quite comfortably as well. Longford versus Antrim, the last one in Division 3. Game that means nothing here. I suppose Antrim already sorted, already promote, or already avoiding relegation. Suppose you'd fancy them to beat Longford, considering Longford's form at the minute.
Flip a coin here, honestly. Actually, I have no idea who wins this one. I'm being 100% honest. It's Antrim are safe. Longford are going down. Neither side has anything to play for here. If Longford had picked up a win, then this game would be very interesting. But they haven't. And so I just think probably we'll go with Antrim to win based off the fact that they beat Cavan last week. So surely they can beat the side that got relegated. But not even with Antrim over the last few years, but with Andy McEntee's teams over the last few years, they have a tendency to look amazing one day and then not so great the next. So I wouldn't be surprised if Longford beat them. But based off their form and how they beat Cavan last week, a game that I definitely did not expect them to win, I'm going to go with them to win this one.
Yeah, look, and just to reiterate that point, like, they lost to Westmeath by 31 points, and then they went out and beat them. so they're very, 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 very old. Yeah, but no, I fancy them. I fancy them to beat Longford as well. Move on to Division 4 then. Obviously, last division here to discuss, and probably the most exciting division in some ways, because it's actually completely wide open in terms of the promotion race. So Sligo are on top with 10 points. Leitrim in second with 8 points. Laois, Wicklow, both locked level on 8 points. Wexford out of the race now, they're with 6 points. They're dependent on score difference, but I think they're a good bit behind there. Carlow, Waterford, and London obviously completely out of the race there as well. So I suppose we'll start with the Sligo versus or Leitrim versus Sligo game. It's obviously the biggest game of Division 4. Disappointing that this is not on TV. I have to say that. Like, I think it would have been great if RTÉ could have maybe had the Division 4 and Division 3 games at a separate time. Maybe on the Saturday, early on the Saturday. I think it would have made much more sense. But look, huge match. Two sides very familiar with each other, neighbours and all the rest. What are you thinking here?
Just before you talk about the game, that's the ironic word that you use, sense, with the bookings in the league this year, as if they have ever made sense. The main one that jumped out to me this year was when Derry were playing Kildare in the football and the hurling in the 1 week, and they had the footballers playing each other in Newbridge and the hurlers playing each other in Owenbeg at the same time. Like, literally the most ridiculous booking I've ever seen. I think both counties that time would have 100% agreed to a double header in either stadium. And for this one, Leitrim Sligo, the local rivalry between these sides. You think about the Tailteann Cup game last year was an epic battle. Went to penalties, Sligo get the victory that day. This one is teed up to be another cracker. You think, like, Leitrim want promotion, Andy Mohan wants promotion. Sligo are the same. They've been down in Division 4 long enough. Tony McEntee definitely wants to get them up and compete in Division 3. And both these sides, if they go up to Division 3, will not be a team that goes right back down to Division 4. They're going to be contenders in Division 3. Division 4 has been really good this year. like Laois, Wicklow, Leitrim, Sligo, all really, really good teams. Wexford as well are a dark horse to pick up a result against teams as well. So yeah, this game, very, very interesting. Sligo just look a little bit better to me though right now. I just say, because seeing as Wicklow beats Leitrim and then Sligo went away to Wicklow and won by 6 points. Sligo, apart from the Laois game where they had that blip, lost by 6 points, since then they've been flawless. And I am going to go with them to, absolutely ensure that they go up to Division 3 by getting a win here. And you're right, I wish the cameras were at this game because it would be a carnival atmosphere. And it would be definitely one to watch.
Yeah, and what's mad as well is that this is a fixture as well. It's likely to be a Connacht semi-final, and there is a scenario that could happen as well where both of these end up in a league final as well. Now, it's an unlikely scenario because the game would need to be possibly a draw, and then Laois would need to get beat by London as well. So it's probably an unlikely scenario, but if it did happen, it would be quite mad. Workmail says Sligo have been way ahead of Leitrim at underage level the last decade and need to make a count by getting league promotion and reach the Connacht final. It is a fair point. Sligo have had won a minor Connacht title a couple of years ago, under 20 last year. Yeah, so there's been a lot of good work done at Sligo, and I think they really do now need to make this count. And it's possible a defeat might still get in there anyway. It might get promoted anyway, but yeah, like I fancy Sligo maybe narrowly by a point. As Keane says here, it's a Connacht derby between neighbours and rivals Leitrim and Sligo, but I feel the home advantage should benefit Leitrim to get over the line and qualify for a league final. Hopefully, I'm gonna edge towards Sligo because with Leitrim as well, when you actually look at the 3 of their wins have come against Waterford, London, and Carlow. They lost to Wicklow, lost to Wexford, beat Laois obviously the last day, which was a huge win. But yeah, I fancy Sligo narrowly in my opinion right there. Just looking through some of the other games here, I suppose the London Laois game, it doesn't really matter much in the end anyway. But obviously, if we're predicting Sligo to get
on the line for Laois, but
it would actually, because if a Laois win would actually put them back ahead. But you'd fancy Laois surely here.
I'm going with them to win it. It's a sticky one though. Nobody goes and beats London by more than 10 points. Like they drag you into a battle. But I will go with Laois to win this one.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think Laois have been inconsistent a little bit at times, but I think the fixture list has been quite kind to them on the final day. Waterford, Wicklow. I think Wicklow all day long.
Me,
yeah.
Good win for Waterford though last week over London. You can't, because a lot of people talking about Waterford potentially going like Kilkenny and the Gaelic football team getting scrapped. But that victory over London, as much as people would say, it's the bottom of Division 4, who cares? That could just keep Waterford Gaelic football alive. Like a little win like that. Because if they were getting pummeled by every team in Division 4, then the team would get disbanded. So a victory like that keeps something there. And, maybe in a couple of years, someone comes in and, puts a bit of spark into Waterford. They can have their own Carlow Rising or something. You never know. So a victory like that, while the chips are down, is crucial. And a big shout out, like Dara Corcoran, obviously he was on your pod. Like, he has been, carrying the torch for this Waterford side throughout the league campaign, coming up with big scores when they've needed them to. And that victory, while, a lot of people won't care about it, that could be crucial.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, and that's the thing with Waterford. They haven't actually been getting hammered. It's been kind of 3, 4, 5 point victories. It's not like they've been getting absolutely trashed every week. So I think we should put some.
And against Leitrim in the first half, they looked very, very good. So there's something to build there with them.
Absolutely. Wexford Carlow, I mean, there's absolutely nothing at all riding on this game. Like the unlikeliest of scenarios, Wexford could maybe sneak in, but they need a lot of results to go their way. But yeah, look, I don't really know what to say about this game really, but Wexford to win.
Yeah, Wexford to win for me. I think Carlow will definitely want to win this one, but I'm not 100% sure what direction Carlow are going in right now. I don't know. Are they going more attacking or are they going defensive? Because their score lines have been pretty low. So I'm not 100% sure what direction they're going in. But I would probably go Wexford to win this one. especially at home. Like they've taken points off. They've beaten Leitrim there. They've drawn Wicklow there. So I think they're going to beat Carlow there.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think Wexford have looked fairly strong indeed at home, and I think, yeah, you'd surely fancy them to get over the line against Carlow. Well, I suppose that wraps things up. Cheers to anyone who tuned in. Make sure to leave a like button and subscribe. Make sure to check out Seamus's podcast as well. Play on GEA. We'll be going live during all the games. Live, I've got Matthew Hurley joining, potentially a few others joining us as well. So make sure for people to tune in and watch that. Obviously, we'll be going live on Sunday around 1 o'clock, 1:30. So make sure to tune in for that. But yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in, and Seamus, cheers for coming on.
No worries, thanks for having me on.